Hello there, Optimus Prime here. It's been a little while since I've had a chance to review an Optimus Prime figure. Obviously, if you know me at all, you know that is my main focus on my collection. And yesterday in the post I received this, which doesn't really fit onto the screen, but it is, of course, the Threezero For Cybertron Siege Optimus Prime figure, based on the Netflix show model, which is based on the For Cybertron Siege Hasbro figure. So, I fully admit I've already popped this open, so I'll switch over to booth mode and we can have a look at this lovely piece of plastic and metal. Booth mode. Booth mode! Okay, I didn't really want to spend too much time talking about the box because it's not that exciting and I'd already taken him out. So let's just dive straight in on this lovely chunk of awesome. So, first impressions. He is a very accurate representation of this particular version of Optimus Prime. He looks pretty much identical to how he does in the Netflix show, complete with all the battle damage, scarring, the cracks on his windscreen. It's got a little. Let's bring it a little bit closer. So, can you imagine to get my videos out of focus? I'm going to be working on that today. That and saying So yeah, you can see he's got like a scar on his eye. You can see that. Yeah, it sort of cracks down one side of his face there, which is looking pretty sweet. And there's a few other marks and dents and scars. He's got the usual sort of siege battle damage look with the sort of brushed damage markings. They're supposed to look like his paint is chipped off. With whatever success you may agree on that, I think it just looks like somebody's sort of wiped a bit of paint on. But anyway, yeah. So the head sculpt is almost. Let's be completely honest. This is almost exactly the same as it looks in the Netflix show, which is almost exactly the same as the Hasbro War for Cybertron figure. All of the detail and mouldings were based completely on that figure. I don't know whether the show scanned the figures in or what. I imagine there was some form of scanning involved, but obviously they were tweaked. But it does look almost identical to its smaller plastic brother. Is that a bad thing? I'll talk more about it in a minute. There are issues, and I will freely admit, as much as I absolutely adore Optimus Prime and love all versions, I wasn't massively bothered about getting this. Over here he costs somewhere between £180 and £250, depending on where you get him from. And I wasn't convinced. It wasn't like the Threezero. I always get confused. The Threezero Optimus Prime from the Bumblebee movie. Was an insta buy as soon as I saw it. I pre-ordered it. But this guy, I hummed and nahed about for ages, and I managed to get him via other means. So I haven't actually physically forked out the money. And I've had this conversation with Simon. If I was having to pay for this with real money, as it were, I don't know if I would have. I probably would have hoped to have got him a bit cheaper at some point. That said, in hand, it's lovely. It is so nice. It's really solid. It's really weighty. There's a massive amount of heft to it. There's definitely metal in the feet, and I think the main sort of endoskeleton to it is metal as well. So yeah, it feels like it's cost you a lot of money, which is good. Because if it didn't feel like that, I'd be a little less impressed. So let's have a quick look at some of the funness of this. So posability wise, there's a lot of joints, there's a lot of moving parts to him, so he doesn't have exactly the same posability as the Hasbro one, which is a good thing, because otherwise again it would be a reason to not necessarily purchase it. So arms, they go up with the shoulders, the part of the body there comes up to give it a little bit of extra movement, and then the shoulders themselves also can tilt up, and this part of his shoulder plating is hinged to allow extra movement of the shoulders there, so he can go all the way up there and do some quite good upward posing. So that's pretty cool. So there's lots of movement and posability there. The shoulders are hinged, the shoulder plates are sort of hinged separately, so they're kind of almost like pauldrons, with his shoulder joint you can see underneath there. Again, all the joints are nice and metal and hefty, and you've got a lot of give in there, so sometimes maybe a little bit too stiff. Yeah, so that's how far they can move upwards, and then you've got full 360 rotation that way. Elbows are single jointed, not double jointed, I think. Yeah, it's got a sort of a longer elbow bar in there, so that there is more movement than if it was a single, like a single L-shaped joint. So you can go up a bit further, but not quite as far as you would be able to with a double elbow. I mean, it's kind of like a double elbow. Maybe it is a double elbow. The more I look at it, okay, it is a double elbow. Ignore me. And again, you've got the middle. Oh, I call it shelbow because I don't know why. You've got movement there, and the bottom part of his shoulder, so bicep, I suppose. And the hands are on a ball joint. The hands are solid, sort of fairly solid rubber, and they are removable, and there are a few different options which I'll show you later. He has these big chunks of transformation, which we'll get onto in a second. Yeah, so that's pretty much the movement in the arms. There's more than enough posability there. You've also got around his chest, you can bring the chest piece forward and do sort of an ab crunch, but it's more a chest crunch, which looks a little bit odd. There's no movement or give in the stomach at all. It's just the chest piece moves up and down. It must be on some sort of ball joint, because you've got give that way as well, so you can do quite a few decent poses. The head is ball jointed, and also there's a neck rocker there, so you've got quite a substantial amount of movement there as well. His backpack thing does have a hinge on it, but that's mostly to help you ping it off. We'll get onto that in a second as well. Legs, finally. So you've got hip movement. These are really quite stiff. One thing that I actually really like is you can't move his legs in any further than this. This is as far in as they will go, which gives him a really decent amount of stability when he's standing. You can't get his legs together too much. They do go out a fair chunk, so that's quite cool. And obviously they move forwards. There's sort of like a rocker in there that moves up and down, so you can actually make him taller if you wanted to, but have an interesting sort of hip gap there, so why anybody would do that. It does make it a little bit awkward to if you have his legs out, then to move them back, if you move them down, you end up with this gigantic gap, so you have to sort of move them up, which is a little more awkward. It's not difficult, it's just a little more awkward. And then the knees actually are pretty cool because they come out of the front here, and there's a fairly large amount of movement there. They can't go back any further than that, but it still gives you quite a lot of posability. And the feet, you've got a rocker, which is massively hindered by his leg pieces here. You can't get it any more than that, so you're very limited with that. You can move the legs, the feet a little bit forward and a little bit backwards. I don't think there's anything that moves any more than that, but you do have a toe hinge there, so you can, there's a little bit of movement there, but again it's hampered very much by the bottom of his legs. So you've got a decent amount of posability with him, but it is hampered a lot of the time by the constraints of the other detailings on him. So yeah, that's not the best. So he is posable, but I mean, part of the problem with the design of Optimus Prime is he's never going to be that posable, because you got this gigantic square chest, you got these gigantic square, well, rectangular bottoms of his legs. So whatever design you go for, based on the sort of the G1 kind of model, posability is always going to be an issue. Oh, and he does have a waist twist, forgot to mention that. I think that's everything. The wheels inside, yeah, they spin. They spin if you want them to. They can't do anything else, but they can. They can spin there. Isn't that exciting? Yeah. So posability. That is pretty much how posable he gets. So let's have a look at his accessories. So let's move you back there, Optimus, and let's get some of these hands into the gear. So you have two of each of the different types of hands. So the first ones are sort of grippy fists, which so far I've best found for holding onto his axe. There's those. We have splayed hands, so fingers splayed quite wide. Again, not too bad. Sort of a slightly metallic-y blue with, again, the sort of the dry brushed metal on them to make them look damaged, or used at least. And then we have two gun holding hands, so with the trigger finger in place. All of these hands are, as I said before, they're rubber, or sort of rubberized plastic. They're very, there's a fair bit of give in them, so it's not too difficult. You can spread them out a little bit. They're not posable in any way, shape or form, but you can get the fingers out well enough so that you can pop the gun in the hand, which I shall show you shortly. And finally you have these hands, which are again sort of splayed fingers but slightly pointy. It's a little bit Captain Picard, I thought. It's a bit of a make it so kind of hand. Two fingers and then two fingers to the side. Or maybe finger guns. Yeah, anyway. Accessories wise, he comes with his, oops, get that in focus, his shield, which, as we know on the normal Siege figure, actually transforms into his axe, but for this figure it is just a solid, well, hollow plastic shield. Nice Autobot logo there. Quite decent detailing. Again, it's exactly the same as the toy. It's got the the blast effect nubbins. In fact, he's got all the blast effect nubbins on the actual figure as well. Yeah, and it fits quite nicely onto his port on his arm there. Just pushes in, boop, and there he has his chunksome shield, which I didn't like on the normal figure, and I will not be putting on him in this version. So that's that, and then, oops, I buried the weapons under the stand. Apologies. So we have his blaster. His, again, it's identical to the toy one, and indeed the cartoon one. Possibly slightly more filled in, and it has a actual handle rather than the normal peg that fits in all the ports normally on sort of mainline figures. So yeah, it doesn't do anything. It doesn't have an LED in it. It is just a plastic gun that has been painted black and then dry brushed silver. It's nice enough, but yeah, what do you expect? And then finally his axe, which is again modelled after the one on the toy and indeed the cartoon. And it's the shield, but with the blades expanded, even though the actual shield that it comes with doesn't have the blades built in. It doesn't do anything apart from look like an axe. Autobot symbol there and there, dry brushed detailing on the axe blade, and a long handle. The handle doesn't fold away like it does on the normal Siege figure, and there's a couple of obvious places that he can hold it. So as I was saying, with the axe holdy hands, these ones, as I said, you've got quite a bit of give on the rubber, so you can pop it into the hand very easily, which is nice because a lot of masterpiece scale figures and in fact a lot of figures in general, I'm having huge problems with some of the G.I. Joe figures getting the weapons into their hands, but these with the rubberized, well, the rubbery plastic is pretty good, and it holds it well enough. If you want it to be a bit more stable, either hold it at the top of the axe, or perhaps down here, and it seems to stay a lot more solidly. I'm going to go for up there because why not? So let's just bring him forward a wee bit, and oops, let's just pop his left hand off. I always hate doing this. These are very solid ball joint pegs, but I always worry that they're going to snap off, so I will tend to do this only a few times, and then just where it's rubbery plastic, it is just push it on, get a nice little pop there, and then it's on. So you've got a fair bit of rotation, a bit squeaky, lovely. There's a little bit of give to the left and right, but not a huge amount. But then he's ready to axe away like an axe beast. And we'll do the same with his blaster. So again, you can just sort of jam it in, and the fingers just get out of the way, and then you saw how easily that went on. It's really nice. It's a nice touch how easily these go in. I've had so much trouble getting guns in, as I said. Anyway, so then we'll do the same on this dude. Just pop the hand off. Ooh, there we go, and pop that back on there. Less of a satisfying pop that time rather, but a pop nonetheless. So then we have Optimus ready to do some glorious posing. I do find the axe does not stay particularly well, so I might have to jam it back in again a few times whilst posing. But as I say, you can get a fair amount of dynamic posing out of this guy. I'm just gonna don't know why anybody would ever pose like this, but there we go. Yeah, it's not the most exciting pose in the world, but hey, that's a pose. Yes, so there we go. Weapons in hand, ready to pose it up a storm. He does also come with a stand with this jobby. Let's move him back out of the way. Boop. So that sort of plops in there, and that plops in there, and you've got a stand, and this little Ujima plugs into a port on his bum, and then you can use it for extra stability. But I've always found them pretty stable on their own, and these bases, unless you've only got a couple of figures that you're posing, the footprint of these bases just takes up so much space. So these tend to sit in a pile in my room, never to be used. And lastly, for the sake of completion, he does come with a little instruction manual. I'm not quite sure why all of these non-transforming figures, because Flame Toys seem to do it as well, always do a sort of a crotch first pose, always sticking that right out as far as it'll go. Interesting. It's not something I'm going to ever investigate. But yes, shows all the things it comes with, shows instructions for how things move, and basically all the things that I've shown you already, really, except for the lighting, which I'm going to do in a second because that's exciting. Oh, hey, fun fact, his feet pull down. So me complaining about this is why sometimes it's a good idea to look at instructions. So oh, well, they come out all together apparently. That's not what I meant. But you can pull the feet down a bit further, so you've got that extra bit of give. Okay, that's good to know for the future. Whether or not they're supposed to come out all the way, mine did, so careful with that, I guess. Right, two things I want to point out, and this is, I suppose, some niggles that I have. He is, as I've said, directly the same as the animation model for War of Cybertron. Again, not sure whether there was any form of scanning involved, possibly. Which means that he has extraneous pieces that are not necessary to the toy in any way, shape or form, like these pieces that are the front headlights on the truck mode, and this piece, which is literally a piece of his bodywork in truck mode, which serves no purpose whatsoever. So rather than taking the choice of having him clean and not worrying about these additional pieces that just don't really do anything apart from sit there. I mean, that serves the purpose of having the port to put his shield in, but other than that, nothing. And you've got what's obviously on the War for Cybertron toy, a hinge here, modelled exactly the same, but it's not a hinge and it does not move at all. So it's like this figure has been made to transform and then had the ability to transform removed, which is really weird. I completely understand why. It's again to make it look like how it does in the show, because all of these pieces, there's another significant one there, and nothing moves there, and again here where these pieces pop up so that you can get access to the well, those bits go onto the back of the truck mode. ordinarily. So yeah, there's another one there. So there's all these hinges that aren't hinges. They're just parts of the transformation on a toy that doesn't transform, which it's a niggle, but again, to make it look like the animation model. Right, so final thing before I do a couple of little quick comparisons so you can have a look at this guy in context with some other things. Let's just move these accessories out the way, make as much noise as possible. This is going on a while. I do apologise if you're bored, but you can always fast forward and find things that interest you rather than my waffle. Okay, so he's got lights, and the lights are pretty fantastic, I will admit, but here's another niggle. To get to the lights, you need to remove this piece, and the only reason I can see for there being this hinge here is to make it slightly easier to pull this off of here. But it's not easy to get off. Anyway, it's got a little sort of squishy peg there that slots into the hole in his back. And then you need a screwdriver. Now I had a screwdriver a second ago. Where is it? Oh, there it is. I put it nice and close here to be helpful, and then lost it. So in there, I don't know if you can see, probably not. There's a little screw. So we get the screwdriver and we unscrew the screw. Screw, screw, screw. You can probably see the screw now. See the screw? Yeah. So you have to get it out enough to be able to pop this whole head section off. Now, I found earlier that this screw became really annoying, so I'm going to get that out of the way now. It became very difficult to get back in, but we'll play with that in a second. So, once you've got the screw out, you can pop some batteries in. At the bottom, they're AG13s, which I luckily had a couple lying about. And that's that. You can see where the screw goes back in at the back here. Get a fairly decent look at his face. Nice, Optimus Prime-y. Luckily, he doesn't come with a voice chip to do that, shall we say, questionable voice acting from the War for Cybertron Siege cartoon. So, to turn on the lights, you have the tiniest switch there, which turns on his lovely, lovely blue eyes. Now, you can't access this switch from the outside. There is no part to push on the front of him. There's no secret button that presses something further on in his transformation, on his chest rather. So the only way to turn the lights on are to take out the screw, take out his headpiece, and turn it on. Then, when you can see these two little metal pieces here, they connect with two little metal pieces on the inside there, which creates a connection. Oops, if I can get it in. Hey, which activates the LEDs in his headlights and his chest. Not sure if that's all. Yeah, it's all lit up. So his eyes and chest all light up. But now to turn it off. Now, assuming, if I turned it on, I wouldn't put the screw back in. I'd leave that out. I probably wouldn't even put this back on. So if I wanted to use the lights on a regular basis, which is unlikely, I would leave all this not screwed in and do it that way. It does look very pretty. Nice green chest. Not really something I ever thought of Prime having, was a green chest, but hey, it works. Green and red always works as a colour combination. Very Christmassy. Yeah, so just gonna turn that off. Boop. There we go. Chest down. Nice. Okay, and that is pretty much him. He's really nice. Let's have a quick comparison. Go compare. So there's Optimus, the Threezero Optimus. I must not lose this screw. Let's pop that there. So here is his original version, the Siege for Cybertron Hasbro figure. And as I mentioned, you've got all these pieces on him here, but in this case they are part of the transformation. They're essential to make him into a truck. So they're not essential if you're having a non-transforming figure. So again, the hinges here, go to pop those bits up, and again hinge, 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 hinge. All the hinges on this do something because it transforms. Obviously that doesn't. I mean, interestingly, even the back of this, which is a static solid piece of plastic, has the same detailing as the or similar detailing at the very least to the figure, but all of this is folded away parts of truck. So yeah, unnecessary detailing, but still kind of cool. If you want a larger version of this guy, but on a slightly lower budget, this is the AOI AOE. Oh, doubtlessly be pronouncing that wrong. Yeah, the AOE mech version, which is a oversized KO of the Siege mold. It's funny because it's actually got a lot of improvements over the original. It's a bit floppier, but they got rid of the arm kibble here and they folded it into the backpack area. So these headlights, which I suppose you could use as sort of blasters if you felt that way inclined, they go away. And even check this, it's got this little hinge here which folds away that piece that sticks down, which sticks down there, and obviously on that guy as well. So weirdly, this guy, the cheap knockoff version of this guy, has less kibble than this guy who doesn't transform, which is baffling to me, utterly baffling. But there you go. So there's those guys, and finally let's just pop those at the back. The axe is going to get in the way. Optimus, and let's pop out Threezero Bumblebee movie Optimus Prime, who I believe is a similar sort of price point, but so I think they kind of don't even seem to be in the same league. The detailing, let me be clear on this. The detailing for this is obviously because he's the movie version and therefore has the movie detailing. This one being based upon effectively the Siege figure has a lot less intricate detail in the figure, but that's obviously because of the way it's intended. So you can't compare detailing on this guy and this guy to that extent, but this guy's bigger, quite substantially. It's got a good couple of inches on him, and there's more or less the same amount of metal, I think. I don't think there's any additional pieces of metal, and the hands are the rubberized plastic again, the same sort of thing as the other one. And again, he has LEDs, but only in his eyes, not in his chest, because that's just painted black plastic. And the posability is about the same, apart from this one has a better. Or does it? Is it actually the same? Oh yeah. Okay, it does actually have the same sort of ab crunch, chest crunch. So ignore me on that one. I'm happier to have paid the money I did for this guy than I would have been to pay the same amount of money for this guy. The only thing he's got over, the only one thing the Siege one has over the Bumblebee movie one is a couple of additional LEDs in his chest, which I don't think make up for it. So let's just move him back out the way. Bring this guy front and center. In conclusion, it's lovely. It'll look really great on my shelf with some of my other non-transforming figures. Is it worth roughly £200? I don't think so. As I said, I couldn't see myself paying out for it before I got it, and now that I have it, as much as I like it and as much as it's going to sit very proudly on my shelf, I couldn't justify spending the money that it cost. I might have bought it, but I think I would have slightly regretted it. But because I've managed to earn it, as it were, it's a different kettle of fish. Lovely looking figure, really nicely posable, but it's really just a very expensive, non-transforming, oversized KO of a Hasbro Voyager class figure. And that, to me, isn't really worth it. But anyway, if you guys have any additional thoughts or feel that I have waffled on far too long, please add comments, let me know. I do take on board comments and suggestions, and try to less and talk less, although this is going on for coming up to 40 minutes, so let's see how much this gets edited down. Anyway, I've been Optimus Prime. I hope you have found this review somewhat insightful. War for Cybertron Kingdom is out next week, I believe, so we'll get to see this guy in action on Netflix and see how dramatic his vocalizations are this time round. Anyway, I've been Optimus Prime. Thank you for watching.
Fingers on plastic.